Welcome back to the channel. I'm trying to make this a little quicker video. I know I've released a couple long videos recently, but today we're going to be doing our defensive tackle rankings for the 2023 NFL draft class. We got our top 10 defensive tackles in the class, and I know I have them in a top 10 order, but I know it is hard to just do pure rankings because I do think some players are kind of pick your poison. So we're going to go over our top 10, and then at the end of the video, I kind of have them split into tiers. You can kind of see where some players, maybe like the 8th and ninth player, really depending on the side of the bed I wake up on, he's 8, another guy's 9, it kind of depends. So we'll go ahead and go one by one, 10 to 1, top defensive tackle rankings, and show you the tiers at the end in the 2023 draft class. Let's get right into the video. Coming in at number 10, we got Zacch Pickens, defensive tackle from South Carolina. He's another dude he's a big dude, very athletic dude, and he's a guy that he's at 10 because he definitely has some issues in the run game and with some two guys. But like, this is a dude that I see best as like if Zacch Pickens goes to a team that's a very like attacking upfield one gapping team, kind of like the San Francisco 49ers were last year, team like that where like, because he's really quick off the ball. He's got a great first step. He made a lot of huge plays in the backfield and run game at South Carolina. So I would love to see him go to an attacking front where he can play that one gap in the interior, like a 3 technique, play that B gap, and, lots of stunts moving around with his athleticism. I think he could really excel as like a rotational dude in defense like that, but he's not going to be doing that. It's going to be like your 2 gapping defensive tackle. He's more of that attacking 3 tech, but that's becoming more and more important in the NFL this year. That's why I think he could be a very valuable player on probably day 2 of the draft. But some of the dudes above him, the reason he's at 10 is just they're more well-rounded games than Zacch Pickens. But he's really close. It was really hard. It was between him and Gervin Dexter, who won't be on this video. He was my honorable mention at 11. It was between those two for 10. Like I said, that's kind of a pick your poison. I was Zacch Pickens just because of like his size and just attacking. I like a little more than Gervin Dexter that I saw in film. But he's coming at number 10 for me on the D-tackle rankings. Coming in at number 9, we got Moro Ojomo, defensive tackle from Texas. I don't really need to see D tackle. These are all defensive tackles, but we got Moro Ojomo from Texas. He's a dude he's kind of one of the more versatile dudes. He's not your like nose tackle. He's gonna be more of like a. He played really at Texas. I mean, he played anywhere from like a shade all the way out to like a 4 on the tackle. Like this dude's a really versatile dude. He's not like your biggest D tackle, but he's also probably a little too big to play defensive end, so he's kind of in that 3 tech, play on the guard and tackle kind of role. But like, he's really good at what he does there. He's a dude that like he's really good with leverage and using his body. Like if you watch his film, sometimes if you get a double team on Moro, then like they can move him. He's like I said, he's not the biggest dude, and he'll move it double teams. But like one thing that I saw a lot in film that this is really good at splitting those double teams. If you play D tackle, you got the technique. Drop the knee, turn your hips, and split the double team. I mean, he's great at that. Like, and that's one thing. Like, if you're an undersized dude, you got to be able to work double teams because if you're gonna get moved, you got to be able to make sure you don't get double teamed. And that's one thing where if they do get on him, he will get moved. But he was really good at splitting them, and he made tons of plays in the run game, splitting double teams and attacking the running back. Very good. Like I said, he played on like a 4 technique against tackles. He can really slide around on the line. He's an athletic kind of dude. Had a really good week at the Shrine Bowl, and a dude that he's just been up and up ever since the draft. Him and Keandre Coburn were that little two-man D tackle rotation at Texas. Coburn was more of your true nose tackle, and he was that kind of swing guy playing anywhere over guards and tackles, and he really excelled at that in Texas. And I think he could excel in the same thing in the NFL on a more versatile front that we've seen with some of these teams, like any of those Broncos disciples that we saw from last year, Sean Desai coming over the Eagles. Some of those defenses with more versatile fronts. I think he could be really good as a versatile interior dude to play kind of different positions. Coming in at number 8, we got Kobie Turner from Wake Forest. Another dude where if you want to hear more like in-depth breakdown on Kobie Turner, go check out my defensive gems videos. He was one of my defensive gems. And this dude's all around just one of the smartest dudes. He had an incredible day. I believe I filmed my defensive gems before his pro day. His pro day happened the other day, and I mean, he blew up the pro day. He had a faster, I believe it was either 3-cone. I think it was a 3-cone. He had a faster 3-cone than Aaron Donald at like 10 pounds heavier. So like this dude's really athletic. He's actually more athletic than I thought. And he's just a really intelligent dude. He's always like the lowest man, he's got great leverage, just plays really well at what he does, kind of anywhere from that 3 tech. I think he could play a shade in the NFL too. Not like Moro where you don't want Kobie Turner necessarily maybe playing out on tackles, but like he's a dude that can play anywhere on that interior line. And just like I said, a really smart dude, really good leverage, really good football player. He was a, transfer from Richmond to Wake Forest. Incredible story. Go check out, like I said, in my defensive gems, you want to hear more, but a great player coming in at number 8 in Kobie Turner. Coming in at 7, we got Siaki Ika, big boy defensive tackle from Baylor, transferred from LSU after a couple years there. Like this dude, when it comes to big boys, Siaki Ika is the big boy. I believe he came in at like 330 pounds. He was a kind of a dude that was like looking at a first rounder early on in the college season, like before the season in the draft process, then kind of slipped down recently. Some other defensive tackles like Calijah Kancey, Adetomiwa, some of these other dudes, I've kind of really jumped him throughout this draft process. His lack of athleticism is really apparent. I mean, like at the combine and pro day, I mean, it was scary numbers. I believe his like RAS, his raw athletic score that you see all over Twitter probably if you follow the draft a lot. It was bad. He's not very athletic, but he's a big body run stuff in D tackle, kind of like, I guess I don't want to say Vita Vea because Vita Vea is athletic and rushed the passer really well for his size, but like going to provide a similar thing what Vita Vea brought to the Bucks and just run stuffing. But Siaki Ika is not going to bring the pass rush that Vita Vea brought, and that's why he's like 7 and more of like a day 2 kind of guy, rather where like Vita Vea was a day 1 because he did this plus was able to rush the passer. Siaki Ika's not going to really bring that pass rush, but he's going to be a big body run stuffing nose tackle, and if that's something you want, which is something that's becoming bigger and bigger every year, with these teams which going into more of a running era in the NFL. So you need a dude like this. So like if you don't have a dude to stop the run, I mean, Siaki Ika could be a good dude on day 2 where he's not gonna be like your all around all pro D tackle, but he's gonna fill a really good role that every team needs in run stuffing nose tackle. And that's exactly what you're getting in Siaki Ika. Next up, coming in at number 6, we got Mazi Smith from Michigan. This is the dude where I was talking about like Kobie Turner, and Ojomo, those last couple of guys, they were just kind of like well-rounded kind of football players, smart guys. Like Mazi Smith is kind of that other end where this dude, he was number 1 on Bruce Feldman's freak list before the year. I mean, this dude athletically is just a freak. You wish you saw if we saw a little more from film on Michigan, I mean, this dude could have been like a first rounder with his athleticism. But like he's still got some, but like he's just one of those high upside D tackles where like you get the athleticism of a dude like Mazi Smith, and you're just hoping you can build upon that in the NFL. And he's a dude, he's like a lottery ticket at the D tackle position in this draft class. Like, I mean, you take him and you're hoping like he's got the athleticism and build to be an elite defensive tackle. He hasn't gotten there yet, and that's why he's at 6. But he's got that potential to get there, and that athleticism that like if you put him in the right coaching staff and they can really build up some of his techniques, pass rushing, and just all-around skill set of a D tackle, this dude could be an elite defensive tackle. And like I said, one of the best just lottery tickets at the D tackle position. Reason why he's coming in at 6 rather than higher is just because I think some of the other dudes above him are a little bit more polished than him. But when it comes to athleticism, I mean, this dude's up there in the defensive tackle class. It's one of the more athletic dudes, up there with like Calijah Kancey and Adetomiwa. Coming in at number 5, we got Keeanu Benton from Wisconsin. One of the Senior Bowl standouts, had an incredible day at the Senior Bowl. Keeanu Benton's, he's a man amongst boys in college football. And this dude is tall, big, quick. I love Keeanu. I was late to Keeanu Benton. I've just recently gotten the Keeanu Benton. I know some people since like the Senior Bowl I've been on, like I know I've seen like mock drafts where like he's sliding up into the first round. I'm not quite there yet. I still see him as like a day 2 kind of guy. Probably a second round, like early mid second round kind of dude. That's why I have him at 5th. But I mean, yeah, this dude's very athletic. Great film at Wisconsin. Humongous dude. I mean, he's one of the biggest risers in the offseason that we've seen, especially at the defensive tackle position. But like, I just think it's a really deep defensive tackle position this year. Like, Keeanu Benton has really made a name for himself in this deep class. I really like what I'm seeing from him. Very disruptive dude on the interior. He can play anywhere from a 1 to a 3. He's more of your like interior. Like, I think you put this dude as shade and he can wreak some havoc. He can rush the passer. He can stop the run. He's a quick dude for his size with how big he is. And just a dude you really want to get to know, because I think he honestly could go earlier than we think. I have him at 5th, maybe as like a mid-second rounder. I wouldn't be surprised if this dude sneaks into day 1 or early day 2, kind of like you saw where like Logan Hall last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kind of jumped up into that like first pick of the second round. Keeanu Benton could slide somewhere in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he really jumps up in this draft. Number 4 in the defensive tackle rankings is going to be Bryan Bresee from Clemson. He's a really interesting dude. Him and Keeanu Benton, I actually see really close, and they're like one of those dudes where like I could, put them differently depending on like what day and how I'm feeling about defensive tackles. But like Bryan Bresee is a dude where former number one overall recruit coming out of high school, came and had some injury issues early on at Clemson, ended up really only putting on like a half a year this year. We haven't gotten to see much film. He's just had tons of like injury and off the field stuff going on with him that we haven't unlocked, I think, the potential of Bryan Bresee. But like, I mean, some of the highlights for him at Clemson, like he's got elite level play in some of his highlights. We just haven't seen the consistency from him, and that's one of the reasons he's here at 4. Whereas like before the draft, people were talking like top 10 pick potential with him, and like I think that speaks to like his upside when people are like putting him in like top 10 potential, even like if it's before the season. Like that's like his ceiling. His ceiling is just his ceiling. His ceiling might be the highest in this entire draft class, probably behind Jalen Carter. But like, his ceiling is up there in this draft, and just because like we've seen the tools, we just need to see more consistency from him. And that Clemson defense has always been like a hard one to scout because like especially with the Venables, how they ran that defense was always like they never really got like one-on-one. It was a very like they have a very team before me, which can work for college football, but it's just hard when you're scouting for the draft their defense because they play their roles. And like Bryan Bresee and like Miles Murphy, and you saw like Clellan Ferrell, Dexter Lawrence, a lot of these dudes that come from the Clemson, we don't really get to see their full potential in college just because that defense is like you're playing a role. They don't really give them a lot of like one-on-one opportunities to win. Kind of changed after they got the new coach this year, and you saw like with like Miles Murphy actually kind of went the opposite. Like Miles Murphy had a really good 2021 film and not as great 22. Bryan Bresee, like I said, we don't really have a lot of film on him, and it's really the inconsistency. But the highs of Bryan Bresee are like just are close to like Jalen Carter. Like this dude's got some of the highs as like a 3 technique. I mean, this dude can really rush the passer, made a lot of huge plays, quick. He's got great hands. The all-around defensive tackle with just another great just lottery ticket at defensive tackle position that I think he sneaks into the first round just because of his potential. Like a dude you really got to keep your eye out on and could be like an elite dude down the road if he really can just put it together and stay on the field. Coming into the top 3, we got Adetomiwa Adebawore. Now, this is a dude where some people might argue he's a defensive end. Personally, I see him as a defensive tackle. I see him more as like a 3 technique, kind of 4-4-eye, sliding somewhere in there rather than like a true defensive end. So that's why I have him in my defensive tackle rankings. But I mean, I think this dude could play defensive end. I think he'd be more valuable as a defensive tackle just with his athleticism. I mean, dude, put on this dude's combine, pro day, whatever you want. I mean, this is a freak of freaks defensive tackle class, and Adetomiwa was up there as maybe number 1 in the freak of freaks defensive tackle class. I mean, we've just been talking freak after freak when it goes Calijah Kancey, him, Keeanu Benton, Bryan Bresee, Mazi Smith. I mean, we got some freak athletes, but he just might be the freak of all freaks in this class, just with his size and weight. He played more of a true defensive end at Northwestern, which I think maybe to his downfall. I think they really just played him at defensive end because of his size and just went with it at Northwestern. But I think you slide this dude in D tackle and he's instantly just one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles. And with his athleticism, he's just going to be able to move all around. Especially you get this dude stunting, playing from shades and playing like more of a gap system. Like I was talking about earlier with like Zacch Pickens, this dude can be disruptive as one of the elite dudes. I think he definitely should go in the first round. I don't know whether he will. I think him to the Eagles has been one of my favorite fits just all off season with him, and like he could pair incredibly next to Jordan Davis. But yeah, he's not going to be like a true interior nose tackle dude that's going to stuff the run. He's going to be more of your athletic 3 tech to rush the passer and do some of those more fun stuff. So that's where I see him. Pair him next to like a dude like a Vita Vea, a Jordan Davis, some of the dudes they have in Cincy. Pair him with some of those true, more nose tackles, and he can just be really disruptive, and you're not going to lose too much in the run game from him. Coming in at number 2, we got one of my guys in this class, Calijah Kancey, another one of my defensive gems. If you want a little more in-depth breakdown, go check out my defensive gems video. He was another one that was in there. But I mean, like I said, this is a freak of freaks defensive tackle class, and Calijah Kancey is another one of those freak of freaks. This dude, undersized, definitely. That I'm not going to argue against you. He is definitely undersized. but I think he could still fill an elite role. Kind of like what I said about Adetomiwa, where like you want to pair him with a dude like Vita Vea or Jordan Davis, and I think that's like his best opportunity to succeed. But I mean, like this dude, athleticism, he's probably even more athletic than Aaron Donald, which is like saying something because Aaron Donald's a freak. And I kind of talked about my defensive gems video where like how, like I think undersized D tackles can succeed in the NFL now, and they're obviously gonna have a more niche role than like other defensive tackles because like he isn't the greatest against the run and he might get moved, but like the big time plays where like I mean like if you get consistent pass rush from the interior, that's one of the most disruptive things in the entire game of football. Like you saw like if you just because when you can get that pass rush right in the quarterback's face, I mean it's hard for them to do a lot. It's like Calijah Kancey can bring that. I mean, he can bring elite pass rush from the interior, which, like I said, will be one of the most disruptive things in football, and that's really hard to find. You saw like Chris Jones, how impactful he can be rushing for the interior. Calijah Kancey can do a similar thing, where he can bring that elite disruption in the middle of the field, and that's why I have him at number 2 as just an elite pass rusher. And even though undersized, everything else, he's like Bryce Young, man. He's undersized, but everything else, you just got to love from Calijah Kancey. Coming in at number 1, I know, shocker of the video, we got Jalen Carter, of course, defensive tackle from Georgia. Now, the only argument with Jalen Carter that's being had right now is his character. And that he's got like reasonable character concerns. There's been like tons of weird stories. Obviously we had the whole arrest saga. We had the whole pro day saga. We had the early reports in Georgia that he had character concerns. We have like Dan Campbell saying that he heard some interesting stories from teammates. Raiders supposedly have him off his board. Very like, if we're talking about character, that's going to be deciding on he's going to go where he goes because of his character. But if we just take a step back and look at him as a football player on the football field, this dude might be the best player in this entire draft, regardless of position. Like, I mean, his power to be able to just throw 300-pound dudes around the field is just insane. I mean, he went up against like NFL talent and made them look like they should go back to high school to play. Like, I mean, this dude just dominated every single player he played against at Georgia. He was a crucial piece of that Georgia defense for the years they won the national championship. I mean, just an all-around disruptive player. Like, you don't see a lot of defensive tackles be a heartbeat of a defense and like the main part of a defense, but like Jalen Carter was that for 2 years. As a true sophomore, like they had a defense at Georgia that included Jordan Davis, Keely Ringo, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, Trayvon Walker, Chris Smith. I mean, they have NFL talent, Quay Walker, everywhere on this defense, and yet Jalen Carter as a true sophomore was the number 1 guy on that defense and the heartbeat of that defense. I mean, like, this dude has just dominated everywhere he goes, and like I said, he's got character concerns. He'll probably be off NFL boards, and I really don't know where he goes. I still think he slides in the top 10 just because, like I said, his talent is the best in this class. But the only thing we have to argue is character concerns. If we talk about a football player, he's the best of the best. So we'll see where he ends up because of those character concerns. But I have him at number 1 just because, like, if I'm looking at him as a football player, he's number 1 in this entire draft as just an NFL player. All right, so that rounded out our top 10. Now you can see here, I tried to kind of put these dudes into tiers. So obviously I think Jalen Carter's on like a tier of his own at the top, just like I said, everything I said about him. And I think there's that next tier of Calijah Kancey and Adetomiwa where those are like the freakiest of freaky athletes that, I think go day 1 and just their upside is just incredible. And then we got kind of the next tier of like those could be day 1, probably day 2 picks somewhere going on, probably in the second round, a lot of them. Maybe, I would even say maybe Siaki Ika could maybe be another tier down. I kind of just slid him in the end. But that's your next tier of like, dudes that like end of day 1, day 2 kind of picks. And then I got my third tier of Kobie Turner, Moro Ojomo, Zacch Pickens. And I think I would also throw, maybe some other dudes in that tier, like Irvin Dexter, I think would sign there, but I only did 10. But that's your next tier of like, third, fourth, fifth round kind of dudes where, they're going to be more project or role players depending on like whether you're looking at like Zacch Pickens or Kobie Turner. Like, kind of your maybe day 3 or late day 2 kind of picks. So that's kind of how I have them tiered out in the end for my defensive tackle rankings. So anyways, that's going to be it for the defensive tackle rankings. Let me know what you guys thought of them in the comments. Anyone maybe I didn't mention at the end of the draft or any disputes you have. I know there's some disputes probably about Adetomiwa, whether he's there, and then There's a huge Keeanu Benton bandwagon. We'll see where he goes. And I know another polarizing, Bryan Bresee is a very polarizing player with some people love him, some people don't like him. So let me know what you guys thought about them. Anyway, hopefully you've been enjoying. I'm trying to bring out a lot more content. We got edge rankings coming out later this week, and then we're just going to keep rolling with the rankings. Going through I won't get through every position, but most positions I'll go ahead and try and get a top 10 out. I already have them kind of set out. Just need to make the videos and do a little more research. But that'll be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys for my edge rankings in a couple days.